Be who God has called you to be, not who society applauds, not who pressure demands, not who fear allows. Be who God has called you to be. Because the greatest tragedy of this generation is not failure, it is imitation. It is people living borrowed lives, wearing borrowed identities, chasing borrowed dreams, while heaven is waiting for them to stand in who they were divinely designed to become. I want you to hear me clearly tonight. God did not create you by accident. He did not form you as an afterthought. He did not design you to blend in, to disappear, to shrink, or to survive. You were created on purpose, with purpose, for a purpose that existed before your parents even met. Before your name was spoken on earth, your assignment was already written in heaven, and the enemy knows this. That is why the first attack is never on your future. It is always on your identity. If the devil can confuse who you are, he will control what you do. If he can get you to doubt who God says you are, he can delay where God is taking you. That is why many people are busy but not effective, religious but not transformed, active but not aligned. They are moving but they are not becoming. God is calling this generation back to authenticity in the spirit. Not noise, not performance, not hype, but truth, power, conviction, alignment. God is not looking for copies. He is looking for vessels. He is not looking for personalities. He is looking for availability. He is not looking for those who sound spiritual. He is looking for those who are surrendered. Be who God has called you to be, even when it is uncomfortable. Because calling is rarely convenient. Calling will disrupt your plans. Calling will offend your comfort. Calling will separate you from people who liked you when you were small, but cannot handle you when you grow. And if everyone is comfortable with the version of you that you are presenting, you may want to ask yourself whether you are truly walking in your calling or just maintaining acceptance. There is a version of you that heaven recognizes, and there is a version of you that fear prefers. Tonight, one of them must die, because you cannot step into the fullness of God while holding on to the safety of disobedience. Partial obedience is still disobedience. Delayed obedience is still rebellion. And hidden compromise will always block public authority. Some of you know exactly what God has called you to do, but you are negotiating with Him. You are saying, God, I'll obey, but only if it doesn't cost me too much. But listen, calling that costs you nothing will produce nothing. The oil only flows where crushing has taken place. Authority only rests on those who have said yes in secret long before they were seen in public. Be who God has called you to be when nobody is clapping, when nobody is watching, when nobody understands. Because God does His deepest work in hidden places. He shapes you in obscurity so you can carry weight in visibility. If you skip the hidden season, public exposure will destroy you. Stop asking God to bless who you pretend to be. Heaven only empowers who you truly are. God does not anoint masks. He anoints surrender. He anoints truth. He anoints obedience. There are people here tonight who have spent years trying to fit into spaces God never assigned you to. You are frustrated not because you are weak, but because you are misplaced. A lion will feel insecure in water, and a fish will suffocate on land. It is not about effort. It is about environment. When you step into what God has called you to be, grace replaces strain. Peace replaces confusion. Authority replaces insecurity. You don't need to become someone else to be powerful. You need to become fully aligned. When David showed up to the battlefield, Everyone tried to dress him in armor that did not fit. Saul meant well. But Saul did not understand David's calling. And many people will offer you advice based on their experience, not your assignment. But if you were what God did not design for you, you will fight battles you were never called to fight. David said, I cannot go with this. Why? Because identity precedes victory. He removed what was impressive and picked up what was authentic. And when he stepped forward as who God had called him to be, one stone was enough. When you are aligned, you don't need many tools. Precision replaces excess. Stop measuring your calling by someone else's success. God never called you to compete. He called you to complete. What someone else is doing does not threaten you unless you are insecure in who you are. When you know your assignment, you can celebrate others without comparison. This generation does not need more gifted people. It needs more submitted people. Gift can take you places your character cannot keep you. Calling without character will always lead to collapse. That is why God takes his time with you. He is not slow. He is thorough. He is not delaying you. He is preparing you. Be who God has called you to be, even when it feels lonely. Because calling often isolates before it elevates. God will remove distractions before he releases direction. Some relationships had to end, not because they were evil, but because they were incompatible with your future. You keep praying for restoration, but God is saying, I am protecting your assignment. Stop apologizing for your obedience. Stop shrinking your conviction to make others comfortable. Light was never designed to negotiate with darkness. Salt was never meant to blend in. You are not here to be accepted. You are here to be effective. And let me say this clearly, holiness is not outdated. Consecration is not extreme. Separation is not legalism. It is alignment. You cannot carry holy fire with polluted hands. God is raising a generation that is unashamed of purity, bold in truth, and uncompromising in obedience. Be who God has called you to be, even when it costs you popularity. Because popularity fades, but purpose remains. Applause is temporary, but destiny is eternal. You will never stand before people and be judged, but you will stand before God. Some of you are tired because you are living divided lives. One version for church, another for social media, another for friends, another in private. That kind of life will drain you. Freedom comes when alignment replaces performance. When who you are in public matches who you are. In secret, peace follows. God is not calling you to be perfect. He is calling you to be yielded. He is not asking for flawlessness. He is asking for faithfulness. Every time you fall, get back up aligned. Repentance is not weakness, it is wisdom. Correction is not rejection, it is direction. There is oil on your obedience. There is authority on your yes. There is power waiting on your surrender. But God will not force you. He invites you. Choose this day who you will be. Not who you feel like being. Not who culture pressures you to be. But who heaven designed you to be. Be who God has called you to be in your generation. Not tomorrow. Not when you feel ready. Not when everything is perfect. No. Because delayed obedience delays impact. And the world is waiting for the real you. Not the edited version. Not the safe version. Not the silent version. Stand up in your calling. Walk in your identity. Speak with conviction. Live with integrity. Serve with humility. Obey with boldness. And when you do, you will discover this truth. You don't need to chase destiny. Destiny responds to alignment. Be who God has called you to be. Heaven is watching. History is waiting, and the grace to become is already available. Becoming precedes doing. This is a law in the spirit that many try to bypass. And because they bypass it, they struggle, they strive, they burn out, and they break down. God has never been interested in what you can do for Him before He is finished forming who you are in Him. Heaven is not impressed by activity. Heaven responds to alignment. Before God ever releases assignment, He establishes identity. Before He sends, He shapes. Before He uses, He prepares. And every time a person rushes into doing without becoming, the weight of responsibility crushes them because their foundation is incomplete. We live in a generation obsessed with action. People want platforms before purity, visibility before vulnerability, influence before intimacy. Everyone wants to do something for God, but very few are willing to become something before God. And yet, Scripture and spiritual law are clear. Who you are determines what you can carry. God never entrusts power to a person whose character cannot sustain it. He never releases authority where identity is unstable. The anointing flows through the vessel, and if the vessel is cracked, the oil leaks. God does not start with your hands, He starts with your heart. He does not first ask what you can accomplish. He asks who you are becoming when no one is watching. The greatest work of God is not what He does through you in public, but what He does within you in private. Many people are praying for open doors, but God is working on inner walls. Many are asking for increase, but God is dealing with integrity, because increase without maturity leads to destruction. Before David ever stood before Goliath, he became a shepherd. Before he ever held a crown, he held responsibility in obscurity. Before he ruled a nation, he learned how to be faithful in isolation. Killing the lion and the bear was not about action, it was about formation. God was shaping courage, trust, dependence, and authority in a hidden field long before a public battlefield appeared. The victory over Goliath was not sudden. It was the overflow of becoming. Doing attracts attention, but becoming attracts God. People see what you do, but heaven sees who you are. And when heaven approves who you are, it backs what you do. Many are trying to do the right things with the wrong identity. They are serving out of insecurity, praying out of fear, preaching out of ambition, giving out of pressure. But when becoming is complete, doing flows naturally, effortlessly, and powerfully. Jesus did not begin His ministry with miracles. He began with identity. Before He healed the sick, before He cast out demons, before He preached to multitudes, heaven opened and a voice spoke, declaring who He was before He had done anything publicly. That was not accidental. It was intentional. God was establishing that sonship comes before service. Identity comes before impact. Being comes before doing. If Jesus, the Son of God, did not begin with doing, what makes us think we can bypass becoming? If He submitted to process, to preparation, to obscurity, to obedience, why do we resist it? Why do we rush? Why do we compare? Why do we envy others' platforms when we have not yet survived our own pruning? Becoming is slow. Doing is fast. Becoming is internal. Doing is external. Becoming is quiet. Doing is loud. And because becoming does not receive applause, many people despise it. But what you rush past will eventually rise up and confront you. What you avoid in preparation will show up in pressure. You cannot escape becoming. You can only delay it. And delay always makes the process more painful. God is not preparing your future by changing your circumstances. He is preparing your future by changing you. If your character is not ready, your future will not be safe. If your heart is not anchored, success will destroy you. If your identity is not secure, influence will corrupt you. That is why God says no before he says go. That is why he hides before he reveals. That is why he delays before he releases. Some of you are frustrated because you feel capable but restricted. You know you can do more, but doors are not opening. Understand this capability does not equal readiness. Gift does not equal maturity. Passion does not equal permission. God is more concerned with who you are becoming than what you are producing. Production without transformation leads to spiritual emptiness. Becoming involves surrender. It involves correction. It involves pruning. It involves waiting. And waiting exposes what you truly trust. When you cannot move forward, when nothing is changing externally, what happens internally reveals the stage of your becoming. Those who complain in waiting are not yet ready for wait. Those who remain faithful in stillness are being formed for authority. Doing can be learned quickly. Skills can be developed. Talents can be trained. But becoming requires time. Character is not microwaved. It is forged. Integrity is not taught in crowds. It is formed in isolation. Humility is not learned on platforms. It is learned in hidden obedience. God uses time as a tool, silence as a teacher, and obscurity as a classroom. Many people want the fruit without the root. They want the harvest without the planting. They want the promise without the process. But in the kingdom, depth always precedes height. Roots must grow before branches can expand. If you grow tall without growing deep, the first storm will uproot you. Becoming is about alignment. It is about your desires being shaped, your motives being purified, your intentions being corrected. It is about learning to say no to yourself so you can say yes to God. It is about letting go of who you were so you can step into who you are being called to be. You cannot become while clinging to old identities. Transformation requires separation. God often removes opportunities not to punish you, but to protect your becoming. He closes doors not because he is against you, but because you are not yet ready for what lies beyond them. Rejection is sometimes redirection. Delay is often development. Silence is frequently instruction. Doing without becoming leads to exhaustion. You can be busy and still be empty. You can be active and still be unfulfilled. But when becoming is aligned, doing becomes life-giving. Service becomes worship. Obedience becomes joy. Sacrifice becomes privilege. You stop striving for approval because you are secure in identity. Becoming also exposes intention. Why do you want to do what you want to do? Is it for validation, or is it for obedience? Is it for recognition, or is it for glory? God will always deal with why before he releases what. If your why is impure, your what will eventually collapse. There are seasons where God intentionally limits what you can do so he can expand who you are. You may feel underutilized, overlooked, or underestimated. But those seasons are not wasted. They are formative. God is not ignoring you. He is investing in you. Becoming requires submission to authority. You cannot develop godly character in rebellion. Those who refuse correction will never carry lasting authority. Those who cannot be led will never be trusted to lead. God tests humility before he releases influence. Submission is not weakness, it is preparation. Many want to do great things for God, but God is looking for people who will allow him to do a great work within them. Because When God does a work in you, He can trust you with work through you. Inner transformation always precedes external impact. Becoming is costly. It costs pride. It costs ego. It costs comfort. It costs reputation. But what it produces is far greater than what it takes. It produces stability, endurance, discernment, and authority. It produces peace that activity cannot give and confidence that applause cannot replace. You cannot rush becoming by copying someone else's journey. Your process is personal. Comparison is dangerous because it pressures you to do before you are ready. Just because someone else is running does mean your season of walking is inferior. Different seasons produce different strengths. God values faithfulness over speed. He values obedience over results. He values depth over display. When you focus on becoming, God takes responsibility for timing. When you focus on obedience, God takes responsibility for outcome. Becoming changes how you see yourself. You stop defining yourself by what you do and start understanding yourself by who you are in God. You are not valuable because of your function. You are valuable because of your identity. When this truth settles in you, insecurity loses its power. Doing will always end, but becoming lasts forever. Platforms will fade. Titles will disappear. Applause will stop. But who you become in God carries eternal weight. Heaven does not reward activity. It rewards faithfulness. And faithfulness is rooted in being, not doing. Becoming requires patience with God's pace. His timing is intentional. He is never late. He is never rushed. He sees the end from the beginning and shapes you accordingly. When you trust His timing, you stop forcing doors and start walking through doors He opens. Some of you are in a season where nothing seems to be happening externally, but internally, everything is happening. God is recalibrating your heart, refining your motives, strengthening your convictions. Do not despise this season. This is where becoming is taking place. You will never do effectively what you have not first become internally. Authority flows from identity. Power flows from purity. Impact flows from intimacy. When becoming is complete, doing becomes natural. God is raising people who are more concerned with depth than display, more committed to formation than fame, more passionate about obedience than opportunity. These are the ones who will carry weight in their generation because they allowed God to finish His work in them before working through them. Becoming precedes doing, and until this order is honored, confusion will remain, frustration will persist, and burnout will increase. But when this order is restored, clarity replaces confusion, peace replaces pressure, and grace replaces striving.